A terminally ill fan made one last wish, to see Amy Winehouse. What happened next in that hospital room would change everything. No cameras, no media, no one knew she was there. Just a dying man, his daughter, and a soul who understood pain better than anyone. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital hummed quietly as visiting hours came to an end. Families gathered their belongings, nurses completed their evening rounds, and the hallways gradually emptied. But in room 347, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Something that would never make the headlines, never appear in tabloids, yet would become one of the most profound moments in the life of a music legend. Robert Mitchell, 73 years old, lay in his hospital bed staring at the ceiling. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 weeks, maybe a month if he was lucky. That's what the doctors had told his daughter Sarah. But Robert wasn't thinking about time anymore. He was thinking about music. Specifically, about a voice that had carried him through the darkest moments of his own life. A voice that understood loss, addiction, and the raw beauty of being broken yet still standing. Amy Winehouse. For the past 5 years, Robert had played Back to Black every single morning. It wasn't just music to him. It was communion. When his wife died 2 years ago, when the grief threatened to swallow him whole, it was Amy's voice that reminded him he wasn't alone in his pain. Her honesty, her refusal to pretend everything was okay, it gave him permission to feel everything he needed to feel. Sarah sat beside her father's bed, holding his weathered hand. She had watched him deteriorate over the past 3 months, watched the vibrant man who had taught her to play guitar fade into this fragile version of himself. But his spirit, that was still there. Especially when Amy's music played softly from the small speaker on his bedside table. "Dad," Sarah whispered, "is there anything you want? Anything at all?" Robert turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting his daughter's. For a moment he said nothing. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, "I wish I could tell her. Tell Amy. Tell her that her music, it saved me. When your mother died, when I couldn't see a reason to wake up, her voice was the only thing that made sense." Amy Winehouse suddenly stopped mid-rehearsal. Something her manager had just told her made her put down the microphone and ask a question no one expected. "Where is he?" 3 days earlier, across London, Sarah had done something she never thought she would do. Desperate, grieving, knowing her father had weeks left, she had written a letter. Not to a celebrity's management team, not to a record label. She wrote directly to the heart. The letter found its way to Amy through a sound engineer who had worked on both their projects, a 6 degrees of separation miracle. Sarah explained her father's condition, his love for Amy's music, and one simple request: could Amy possibly, if there was any way, send a video message? Just a few words. Something Robert could hold on to in his final days. Amy read the letter in her dressing room at the recording studio. She read it once, then twice, then a third time. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the paper. Her manager, noting the change in her expression, asked what was wrong. "Nothing's wrong," Amy said quietly. "Something's right for once." She picked up her phone. "Cancel tomorrow's session. And get me the address of St. Mary's Hospital." Her manager protested. There were deadlines, commitments, a dozen reasons why this wasn't practical. Amy cut him off with a look that said more than words ever could. This wasn't negotiable. The next evening, as the sun began to set over London, a black car pulled into the hospital's back entrance. No security detail, no photographers, no announcement. Just Amy, wearing sunglasses and a simple hoodie, carrying a guitar case. She had called ahead, speaking directly to Sarah. "Don't tell him," Amy had said. "I want to see his face when he realizes I'm real." Sarah had cried on the phone. "You're actually coming? Yourself?" "He listened to me when he needed someone," Amy replied. "Now I'm listening back." The hospital staff, sworn to secrecy, guided Amy through the service corridors. A nurse who recognized her started to speak, but Amy gently put a finger to her lips. This moment was too sacred for words. Outside room 347, Amy paused. She could hear the faint sound of her own voice playing inside. Back to black. The irony wasn't lost on her. She took a deep breath, the kind she took before every performance, but this felt different. This wasn't a stage. This was life, raw and unfiltered. Sarah stepped out into the hallway. When she saw Amy standing there, she couldn't hold back her tears. Amy embraced her without hesitation. "Thank you for writing," Amy whispered. "I needed this as much as he does." "He doesn't know you're coming," Sarah managed to say through her tears. "Good," Amy smiled. "Let's give him a reason to believe in something." Backstage, Amy made a decision that would shock everyone around her. She put down everything, every commitment, every excuse, and chose to be present for a stranger who had never asked for anything except to be heard. Amy pushed open the door to room 347. Robert was lying in bed, eyes closed, the speaker playing. "You know I'm no good." Sarah walked in first, Amy following quietly behind. "Dad," Sarah said gently. "Someone's here to see you." Robert opened his eyes, expecting a nurse or perhaps another doctor. Instead, he saw a figure standing at the foot of his bed. It took his brain a moment to process. The beehive hair. The distinctive eyeliner. The presence that seemed to fill the room with both vulnerability and strength. Amy Winehouse. For several seconds, Robert couldn't speak. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes widened, filling with tears that began streaming down his weathered cheeks. His hand clutched the bedsheets as if to confirm this was real. "Hello, Robert," Amy said softly, her own voice cracking slightly. "I heard you wanted to chat." Robert's voice emerged as barely a whisper. You're really here." Amy moved closer, pulling a chair beside his bed. "I'm really here. And I brought something." She reached for her guitar case, opening it to reveal the acoustic guitar she'd written some of her most personal songs on. "Your daughter told me you love music," Amy said, positioning the guitar on her lap. "Told me my songs meant something to you. But here's the thing, Robert. Your letter, it meant something to me too. More than you know." Robert tried to sit up straighter, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Sarah quickly adjusted his bed, propping him up so he could see Amy clearly. His hand reached out instinctively, and Amy took it without hesitation. "I'm dying," Robert said, the words matter-of-fact but loaded with everything he'd been holding inside. "I know," Amy replied, not looking away. "And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry that this is happening to you." The profanity, the rawness of it, somehow made everything more real, more honest. This wasn't a celebrity making a pity visit. This was one human being acknowledging another's pain without sugarcoating it. "But you're not dead yet," Amy continued, her grip on his hand tightening. "And right now, in this moment, we're here. You and me. And I want to play you something. Not one of my songs. Something I think you need to hear. If you're watching this and feeling what Robert felt, if you've ever needed someone to just see you, subscribe now. Because what happens next will remind you why music can heal what medicine cannot." Amy began to play. Not Rehab or Back to Black. She played Somewhere Over the Rainbow. A song that predated her by decades but carried within it all the hope and longing that both she and Robert understood too well. Her voice, that incredible, soul-crushing voice, filled the small hospital room. Robert closed his eyes, tears continuing to flow freely. Sarah stood frozen in the corner, her hand over her mouth, trying to process the surreal beauty of what she was witnessing. Hospital sounds faded away. The beeping machines, the distant announcements, the clinical coldness of the space, all of it dissolved into Amy's voice. When she finished, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, pregnant with everything that had been said without words. Amy set the guitar down gently and leaned forward, her face close to Robert's. "You wrote in your letter that my music saved you when your wife died," Amy said, her voice steady but her eyes glistening. "But I need you to know something, Robert. Your letter, it saved me today. I've been so lost lately, so tired of all the noise, All the bullshit that comes with this life. And then your daughter's letter found me. And it reminded me why I do this. Not for the charts, not for the critics. For moments like this. For people like you who actually listen. Robert found his voice stronger now. You've given me so much. Every morning, your music, it helped me remember my wife. It helped me feel the pain instead of running from it. And feeling it, somehow that's been healing me. Not my body, but my soul. Amy wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smudging her iconic eyeliner. That's the thing about pain, isn't it? Everyone tells you to get over it, move on, be strong. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just sit in it. Let it break you open. Because that's where the real stuff is. That's where we find out who we actually are. Is that what your music is about? Robert asked. Sitting in the pain? Yeah. Amy nodded. It's about being honest. About not pretending I'm okay when I'm falling apart. Because when I sing about being a mess, about being broken, people don't feel so alone in their own mess. And that connection, that's the only thing that's ever really mattered to me. Sarah spoke up from her corner, her voice shaking. Amy, I don't know how to thank you. You didn't have to come here. You didn't have to do any of this. Amy turned to her. Yes, I did. Your father spent years listening to me, really listening. Not just hearing the songs, but understanding what I was trying to say. That's rare. That's precious. And when someone gives you that kind of attention, that kind of care, you show up. You show up because that's what humans are supposed to do for each other. But here's the part no one expected, the part that changed everything. Amy reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, something that would become more valuable than any platinum record. From her jacket pocket, Amy withdrew a small, worn piece of paper. It was folded carefully, the edges soft from being touched many times. She unfolded it slowly, her hands reverent. This, she said, holding it up for Robert to see, is the first lyric I ever wrote. I was 15 years old, sitting in my room, trying to figure out why I felt so different from everyone else. I wrote, "The pain is a gift, if you're brave enough to open it." She placed the paper in Robert's palm, closing his fingers around it. I want you to have this. Not because I think it'll make you better, because I know it won't. But because I want you to know that what you're going through, the way you're handling it, that's bravery. Real bravery. And I see it. Robert's tears came harder now, his whole body shaking with the weight of being truly seen. I'm scared, he admitted. I'm so scared of leaving Sarah alone. Of the pain. Of just not being anymore. I know, Amy said, and her voice carried the weight of someone who understood existential fear intimately. I'm scared too. Different fear, but fear all the same. And I don't have answers. I don't have some wisdom that makes it okay. But I can tell you this, you've lived. Really lived. You loved someone enough that losing them broke you. And you let my music in when you needed it. That's not nothing, Robert. That's everything. She picked up her guitar again. I want to play you one more song. This one's not released yet. Nobody's heard it except my producer. But I want you to hear it. Because I wrote it thinking about people like you. People who've loved and lost and kept going anyway. The song she played was slow, acoustic, stripped of all production. Later, it would be reworked and changed, but in that moment, it was pure and raw. The lyrics spoke of finding beauty in brokenness, of carrying loss like a lantern instead of a burden. Robert listened with his eyes closed, his hands still clutching the piece of paper Amy had given him. When the song ended, Amy stood up. I should probably go. I'm sure the hospital staff are freaking out that I'm here. Wait, Robert said, his voice urgent despite its weakness. Will you sign something for me? For Sarah? Amy smiled. Of course. What do you want me to sign? Sarah grabbed a CD case from the bedside table, Amy's album. Back to Black. Amy took it and a marker, but instead of a simple signature, she wrote a message on the inside cover. When she handed it back, Robert read it aloud, his voice cracking. To Robert and Sarah, thank you for reminding me why I sing. Your love for each other is the real music. Keep listening, even when I'm gone. Love, Amy. The phrase, even when I'm gone, hung in the air with unintended weight. None of them knew then how prophetic those words would become. Amy hugged Robert gently, careful not to hurt him. Then she embraced Sarah, whispering, "He's so proud of you." I can see it in his eyes. As Amy walked toward the door, Robert called out one last time, "Amy." She turned. "Thank you for being broken," he said. "It taught me how to be whole." Amy nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming freely now. She left through the same service corridor she'd entered, her guitar case in hand, her heart heavier and lighter all at once. Robert Mitchell died 3 weeks later, the piece of paper Amy had given him clutched in his hand. Sarah played Back to Black at his funeral. When she opened the CD case to place it in his coffin, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. On the back of Amy's note, there was one more line. "P.S. Tell him I learned as much from him as he did from me." That's what music is for. Amy never spoke publicly about that hospital visit. No cameras captured it, no journalists reported it, no fans ever knew. But Sarah knew. And in the years after Amy's own tragic death, when people asked Sarah what Amy Winehouse was really like, she would smile through tears and say, she was exactly what her music promised. Broken, honest, and more beautiful because of it. If this story reminded you why music matters, why connection matters, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because some stories deserve to be told forever.